Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for checking out our Facebook page. Even though there's so much disconnect among us these days because of the worldwide need, so much illness and uncertainty going around, certainly we feel the disconnect in the nation, in the local community, let alone as a faith community. But nevertheless, I just wanted to check in with you and offer some thoughts and comments on the gospel as we continue this journey through the holy season of Lent. You know, today we have the gospel from the Gospel of John, a wonderful story that we're all familiar with about the man born blind, how he encounters Jesus, asks for the gift of sight, and of course Jesus reacts to it. He heals his sight and he sends him on his way. Ever since this particular episode in his life, his world is never the same. But when you think of it, how would you explain color to a person born blind? Just think about it for a moment. The person you're talking to has absolutely no frame of reference for what you want to describe. You might explain that different colors distinguish objects, like different tastes distinguish foods. All the non-seeing person would get from that is the concept of difference. You have told them nothing about sight, or red, or green, or purple, bright, or hazy for that matter. They have nothing in the repertoire to experience imagining seeing. Imagination is built on images, as we know. And someone who is not sighted has no visual images. That person can learn to read Braille, to navigate in the world of objects. They will probably develop some other senses, of course, to a degree that the rest of us will not. But no matter how well they navigate this world, they will never have a real insight into the visual world. So again, as I said, in this third week of our Lenten pilgrimage, we're invited to put ourselves in the sandals of this man, born blind. Jesus' disciples saw him as the object of some theological discussion. Something was obviously wrong, and the response was to figure out who to blame. Was it him or his parents? Now, how could a child that's born blind be any guiltier than the others born on that same day? So it must have been the parents, they concluded, and voila, problem solved. But Jesus would have none of that. Not one to theorize about other people's poverty. He responded to this man's need right there and then, molding the matter out of which God has created the earth. He covers the man's useless eyes. And in John's story, this blind man didn't ask Jesus for anything. It suggests that he didn't know enough to ask for what he didn't have. But instead, Jesus initiated a relationship with him, smeared his eyes with a mixture of clay and saliva, the earth in its own essence, we might say, the combination of heaven and earth that held some healing power. When people interrogated the once blind man about what happened, he simply said, "This man called Jesus made clay, and he anointed my eyes." But note the choice of words. He symbolically reenacted God's creative work of fashioning human beings from the clay of this earth and used it to repair his vision. He anointed my eyes, he said. See, the Greek word for anointed, epikrio, it comes from the same root as the words chrism or Christ that we use almost every day in the church. You might say that this man said that Jesus christened his eyes. That's a very good question for all of us to ask as we contemplate this week's gospel. What would it mean to allow our own eyes to be christened? You know, Jesus of Nazareth is no longer walking through our streets. But we do believe in his promise to remain with us until the end of time? How might he be reaching out to us to anoint our eyes, to christen our vision? And my friends, if we follow this story, we see that he went through the stages of development. First, the man accepted Jesus' invitation to wash, which can be probably perceived also as an allusion to the baptism that most of us received as infants. Then, just as he was learning to see, he went on trial for having been healed. He didn't have all the answers. He held his own against those who interrogated him. I don't know who he is, he said. But if he were not from God, he would not have been able to give me sight, he concluded. And that piece of logic was all it took for him to be expelled from the community. These guardians of orthodoxy, if you will, were quite certain that no good person would heal on the Sabbath day. In this final scene, Jesus again approaches the man and asks him if he believed. And the man admitted that he didn't know yet quite enough. He didn't understand who had healed him. But when Jesus revealed himself, he saw him for the first time for who he really was, and ultimately believed. My friends, no matter how great or insightful our faith, as we continue this pilgrimage of faith through this holy time of Lent, allowing our vision to be christened is a lifelong process. This healed man might warn us that such a vision can lead us to trouble, but he would also certainly tell us that it's so worth the price. And may the peace of Christ be always with you. God bless you all.